Hey, welcome back to the movies that I watched this month. If you're new, I just talk about the movies that I watched and I give you my 2 cents on them. I started the month with American History X and I thought it was fantastic. You can tell from the opening scene that this movie is going to be really heavy and it carries that weight all the way through to the end. There were some scenes that I thought were actually kind of hard to watch, especially the scene when Derek fights his sister and the one where he's arrested. I really liked the use of black and white in the film, which I thought to be a reflection of Derek's black and white views of the world. I also noticed that they had shot certain scenes in an interesting way. Whenever someone is holding a camera, like the scene when the skid heads to destroy the grocery store, or when Derek comes home, the scenes are shot in such a way that they look almost unprofessionally recorded, which I thought was a nice touch. They looked kind of more like home movies than professionally shot scenes. Then on March 10th, I went to a local theater and watched this. 10 out of 10. Everything Everywhere All at Once is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen. It's a bizarre, heartfelt, hilarious, and beautiful masterpiece of a film that everyone should watch. I really think that this is one of the greatest films of all time, and I think that seeing it in theaters is the best way to go about watching it if you can. All the performances are well done, and I think Stephanie Hsu should have gotten the Oscar instead of Jamie Lee Curtis, and it absolutely deserved the award for Best Picture. Then I watched Kiss the Ground. It's a documentary about dirt. It was enjoyable to watch, and it had some information on agriculture that I thought was interesting. But apparently, some of the information regarding things like how cattle are raised are inaccurate. But to be fair, the documentary is like 3 years old. I liked it as entertainment, but I don't think it could have been. But I think it could have been better as a documentary. Up next is All Quiet on the Western Front, which in my opinion did an excellent job at portraying the indifferent brutality of war, but also the humanity in the individuals involved. I've seen reviews for this movie from people like Brendan Happy here on Google, saying that it's Nazi propaganda that tries to make the Germans seem heroic, which, for lack of a better word, is a pretty ignorant take on the film. It's about World War I and the Germans aren't Nazis, and the movie doesn't really take sides on who is good or bad. It just as easily could have been a story from the French point of view, and we still would have had similar opinions of the characters. All Quiet on the Western Front is about the struggles of the soldiers, which aren't really painted in a good or bad light, and there isn't really a clear antagonist, since it's more complex than a simple good and evil way of painting things. The film also has excellent cinematography, with some notable examples like the tank scenes, or the shots where flares would illuminate no man's land, so we could catch brief glimpses of dead soldiers. The score is also pretty good, with musical pieces like Remains, which you may remember from every 10 minutes of the Oscars. It's a very good film that I think is worth watching. I just recommend the German version over the English dub. Then I watched Joker, which is also a very well done movie. I think that this was an interesting take on Joker's character, showing a much more vulnerable side of him compared to the likes of Heath Ledger's portrayal in The Dark Knight, which made it even more captivating to watch him break down under the weight of the world around him, which I think culminated at an especially violent scene near the end, which was made even more shocking, seeing as this was a man that we had seen trying his best to keep on a happy face an hour earlier. As always, Robert De Niro delivered a fantastic performance, even though it was pretty brief, and Joaquin Phoenix also did an extraordinary job. A while after that, I watched John Wick 4, and man, I love these movies. This was the perfect way to end the series. I thought the third John Wick was over the top, but this one blows it out of the water. The movie feels a lot like a video game, which surprisingly turned out really well. And they kept most of the fight scenes fresh by utilizing numerous characters like the Tracker and Kane. It was easily one of the best parts of the movie. He steals the show in pretty much every scene he's in, and I'd be happy to see a spin-off with more of his endeavors. My only gripe about it is that it has its moments where you really feel the length of the movie, especially towards the end, but other than that, it was probably one of the best in the series. Gladiator was also a pretty good movie, but I don't think it's as good as people make it out to be. I think most of the characters are pretty bland, except maybe for Commodus, and most of the fights are just okay. I still think it's a good movie, though it's a bit overrated. And shortly after Gladiator, I watched Jinro the Wolf Brigade, and it was really, really boring. I pretty much only watched the movie because I saw the opening scene on YouTube and thought it looked good. But in my opinion, that opening scene was really all it's going for it. And as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't even need to watch the movie to see stuff like that. I could just drive an hour and go to Portland and see that kind of stuff. Maybe it's just because it was late at night when I watched it, but I couldn't tell you what the movie was about to save my life. It's like it's implying something is going on, but it never tells you what it is until the climax of the film. The story didn't even really pick up until around the middle of the movie, at which point I didn't really care about it anymore. Then I watched the new Tetris movie. Someone enjoyed the game Tetris, and I was curious to see how this film would turn out. I didn't really have much faith in the quality, but I was surprised to find out that it actually was decent. I don't have much to say about this movie. However, there's this one scene when Hank went through the Nintendo headquarters and there was some wall art that he walked by, which is actually just enlarged versions of Nintendo's old Hanafuda cards that they used to sell because like gambling was kind of like prohibited in Japan, so they had to make up substitutes for it in the form of those cards, which I thought was a really cool detail that they put in the movie. So yeah, that there's some obscure knowledge about Nintendo instead of an actual opinion. I finally closed the month with Fight Club, another remarkable movie that I think was a good way to end the month. Between this and American History X, I kind of wonder how Edward Norton's career turned into things like Glass Onion. This movie has a lot of things that I really liked. For example, I thought most of the humor was pretty funny. The action sequences were good, and the premise itself of a man seeking more from this modern world where everything feels artificial, which I found relatable. Crap. I think the narrator might be my literally me character. I didn't want that to happen. Yeah, there's also Soap. I like Soap. Seriously, if you look at my Christmas list, it's mostly Soap. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about this movie. It's really good, but I mean, it's late, and I just watched it an hour ago, so I haven't really thought about it that much, and I don't have a lot to say. So yeah, there's the stuff I watched in March. I think it was a pretty good month. As always, thank you for watching. If you have any movie recommendations, I'd be happy to see them in the comments. If not, see you next time.